Three, two, one, go. All right. Is it recording? Yeah. Today we're talking about photorespiration, C4, and CAM. To understand photorespiration along with C4 and CAM, first we have to know about the Calvin cycle. And the Calvin cycle is the set of chemical reactions that take place inside the chloroplasts during photosynthesis. Uh, the Calvin cycle itself is light independent because it takes place after energy has been captured from sunlight, as well as so it can occur during the night and during the day. This will come in later. So, next slide, please. First, what is photorespiration? Photorespiration refers to the use of an enzyme called RUBP carboxylase, aka Rubisco. Uh, Rubisco is it fixes to either a carbon dioxide cell or an oxygen cell into organic molecules. However, if oxygen is also present, it competes it competes as a substrate which can combine with Rubisco. Um, Rubisco binds to the oxygen rather than the carbon dioxide, thus reducing the quantity and quality of photosynthesis, thus lowering its effectiveness. This is the enzyme Rubisco, which can either use CO2 or O2 as a substrate. Whichever molecule it binds to can form either a 5-carbon compound called ribulose 1 or 5-biphosphate. We have a small little picture here. CO2 is more likely to form at lower temperatures, and O2 is more likely to combine with Rubisco at higher temperatures, thus bringing in hot and humid climates or dry climates.
Okay, hi, I'm Roger, and C3 plants perform C3 photosynthesis, which is the most common type of photosynthesis. The first compound formed is 2,3 carbon molecules, and these plants are grass, flower, and trees. So what is C4? C4 is a photosynthetic process in some plants which limits photorespiration to intake more CO2. The difference between C4 plants and C3 plants is that in C4 plants, they make a 4-carbon sugar instead of 2,3 carbon sugars in the Calvin cycle. The larger sugar in C4 plants bring more CO2 to the Rubisco enzyme, which reduces oxygen levels. The process is energy intense, so most of these plants are going to be found in or need to be exposed to a lot of sunlight, so dry environments. The thing that makes C4 unique from a C3 is it has 2 cells, which are a mesophyll cell and a bundle sheath cell. And the mesophyll cell is located along the cell wall, and the bundle sheath cell is located deeper down in the vascular tissue, close to the vascular tissue. Oh, how C4 works in plants. So the first process, it starts at the leaf surface. CO2 enters through the stoma and is fixed by phosphoenol pyrite carboxylase to create oxaloacetic acid. PEP is very important in this process because it's an intermediate to the metabolism of glucose. Once the oxaloacetic acid is created, it is then transformed into malate, which is then transported from the mesophyll cell into the bundle cell. After it's down in the bundle cell, it can be broken down into CO2, which then it can enter the Calvin cycle and produce its sugar. And also it breaks down into pyruvic acid, which is then converted back into PEP to restart the process. So these are some examples of C4 plants, which include corn and sugarcane. They'll be found in dry environments, and they need a lot of sunlight for this to be able to work.
Okay, so what is CAM? Oh, and I'm SB, by the way. Crustacean acid metabolism, otherwise known as CAM. These plants minimize photorespiration and save water by separating the steps between, the steps of this process between night and day. Crustacean, however you say that, It is the first family of plants discovered like with this pathway specifically for this kind of like adaptation type deal. So looking at this picture, you see the dark and the light green in it. I think. Yeah, you're pretty sure you can see it. So this bottom part is the daytime, and as you can see, obviously there's a lot less going on versus the night, which is on top, whereas there's a lot more where there's the pep and the carboxylates and all that happiness going on. This reasoning is due to the fact that when going through these processes at night, the CAM process, obviously, at night is going to have the plant lose less water versus during the day when there's going to be hotter temperatures and there's more of the possibility of that. So how this works, so a plant uses crossylation acid metabolism, otherwise known as CAM, as an adaptation for photosynthesis in dry and arid conditions. So conditions like these would be like the desert, that kind of stuff. In this process, carbon dioxide entering open stomata during the night is converted to organic acid, which release carbon dioxide for the Calvin cycle during the day when stomata are closed. So the question would be right now is, what's stomata? So stomata are these little tiny openings in the plants, and what it does, it's offering the exchange of gases so that it is able to do processes such as photosynthesis. So these are some CAM plants. Again, we're going to touch on the night and day process and how so much more goes on during the night versus the day. Again, it's due to how much water it's going to lose if it does it all at once during the day. In the middle, we have a cacti flower, and then on this side, we have a pineapple. And again, the only thing that relates the two is the fact that they are both adapted to be in dry, arid conditions as they're growing and producing stuff. So, yeah.
So here to recap everything, we started off with the Calvin cycle, which is basically the cycle that occurs during photosynthesis. The main difference between photosynthesis and photorespiration being the addition of the rubisco enzyme. So the Calvin cycle relates to everything chemical that's going on inside. It does not relate to really the sunlight that has been entered into the plant. Through photorespiration, we have like the chemical reaction in which rubisco takes up the oxygen as opposed to the carbon dioxide that occurs in photosynthesis, meaning that it releases more carbon dioxide during the process. Rubisco is a replacement enzyme that occurs in plants and acts as the ATP of plant cells. The main difference between C3 plants and C4 plants would be that C3 plants live in more water available environments, meaning that they don't really have to adapt to the C4 photosynthesis.
Day and night equivalent.
This occurs throughout the day and night, and they aren't that as unexposed as CAM plants. CAM plants refer to having to adapt further into a different night and day cycle in order to produce as much glucose as possible for the plant.
All right. Excellent. Yeah. These are our works cited, just the ones listed. I don't know if you're going to actually review that, Dr. Distel. Thank you. Bye.